Welcome, everyone, to the Run Local podcast. This is the podcast where we invite guests from across the spectrum of society, including elite athletes, entrepreneurs, local legends, and even some of our great sponsors, as you will see today. So we like to utilize the sport of running to learn more about these individuals, their local community, and what they're doing to kind of change the world within their organizations. We see running as kind of like the vehicle for that, but not even where it starts nor stops. So at Run Local, we love to use the power of movement and doing the doable at a local level. So unlike other podcasts, you will get the opportunity to jump in between a myriad of hosts, myself being JT Service, other times Josh Muxon, and even Jimmy Coleman, the voice of Nitro Circus. But today it is a one-on-one podcast, and we are super excited to have our guest today, who is the VP of Retail Experience at Excite Credit Union, Mr. Richard Walter. Did I nail that, or did I nail that?
You totally nailed that. It's almost like you had it rehearsed.
It's almost like I was reading it off the screen. I totally cheated this time.
That is my title.
Cool. And what does that involve? Excite Credit Union being the presenting sponsor of the Silicon Valley Half Marathon. This is the first time we've had a presenting sponsor. So really we can say Excite Credit Union is like one of the most important people in our organizations in our world, because you support so many of the things we do. But what does Excite do in terms of supporting Run Local events in Silicon Valley Half Marathon?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say before anything, we are a credit union, and a credit union is all about the whole cooperative spirit, and it's about people helping people. And that is a driving force for our credit union. And our CEO, even Brian Dorsey, has a very clear direction for our organization, making sure that we're making impact beyond just financial products and services, but really finding ways to give back to the community in other ways. Because we know as an organization that when we can help our members or help the community, it all makes the community a better place. And it's really like sponsoring events such as the Silicon Valley Half and a variety of other nonprofits that we actually participate in, that we're trying to live true to our purpose.
Yep.
And that's really what we're all about.
That's cool. And this is not, I guess, for those listening at home, this is not corporate speak. We have had the opportunity. I've had dinner with Brian Dorsey, the CEO of Excite Credit Union, John from Community, and then seeing them walk this walk. There's a lot of people that talk the talk. Excite Credit Union, they back it up. And one thing, I was at a fundraising sponsorship dinner for Eastside Alliance, and Brian gave a great talk, the CEO of Excite, talking about how they do support these communities, how they're setting up, and you might be able to talk about this, these savings accounts for kids. I think it's to get ready for college, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can speak to that specific program, but there's so many of these things that Excite Credit Union, formerly Alliance Credit Union, but now going forward, Excite Credit Union is doing in the community, and that we love.
Yeah, and I think that really goes to the point regarding financial equity. We have realized as an organization that there is some disparity between those in the community as it relates to financial products. One of the foundations near and dear to our heart actually supports foster youth kids that are actually in the space. And I think there's a statistic out there that says that if there is a foster youth kid had as little as $500 in a savings account by the time they turn 18, they're 90-something% more likely to actually go to college and graduate.
Wow.
And so,
Yep.
Some of those driving forces and those insights really help us as an organization determine products and services that really are able to give back to the community. I think the savings account that you were referring to is called our Step Up Savings.
Yep,
and
that was it.
That is for those individuals of some of these nonprofits that we partner with to help bring people to a more equitable position in the community. We actually fund the opening deposit for the individual of $50, and then the credit union will actually match $25 per year from the time that they enroll in the account all the way up until they hit 18, with bonus contributions occurring at ages 5, 10, 15, and 18. And I
That is
think
so awesome.
at the end of that, when they do turn 18, if they started at age 2 or 3, they would have well over $1,000 sitting in a savings account, of which more than $600 was contributed by the credit union.
Yeah, and that's so cool. I mean, yes, the money part's cool, and it's commendable to be adding this money every year and at the bonus levels. But what I see is different. My parents being educators growing up, is it's almost like a mindset flip. You know, like a switch where you're saving this money for college, so you're starting to think that you're going to college. It's almost like putting the kind of putting the cart before the horse, but it changes your mindset of where like the track you're on. I think as a kid in specifically right here in San Jose and in Santa Clara County, where our events exist and where Excite Credit Union calls home. So
Yep.
um, it's really cool. So I guess this is a long myriad of way of in the beginning of this podcast to be talking about that there's this real relationship between Excite Credit Union being the presenting sponsor of the Silicon Valley Half. We as an organization are called Run Local Events. And I started this 10 years ago. I think we came up with the tagline maybe 8 years ago for Run Local. And the reason really was to dig into our local communities, support local charities such as Silicon Valley Education Foundation, which we will get into. I know that's a charity that we both support. Um, Partner with local artists and create events for local communities that are healthy and happy and fun. And I think we finally found like this partner in Excite that goes right along with it, right? Like you guys are supporting. Brian's even said it before that it's not so much you're keeping your money at Excite Credit Union. It's kind of like the money is just going into the community and then it just gets moved around. It's like there's loans going out here, but it all stays very local. And I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of our promise to our community is that, if we're able to take care of each other, and it goes back to those cooperative principles around people helping people, some of these
Hmm.
financial products, quite frankly, they're not profitable for the credit union. It's truly about giving back to the community, and it's really helping individuals get to a more equitable position. And like you said, what goes around comes around, and that's what
Mm.
really making an impact in the community is all about. And it's something that we're committed to as an organization. And I think even what we're going through right now is when there's strain and uncertainty in the marketplace, now more than ever is the most time to really honor those commitments and ensure that you are committed to the community.
Oh, that's great. And those who are watching this on video can see in the backdrop behind me our kind of tagline at Soul Focus, which is our kind of umbrella company, is give love, get love, and really leading with that giving element. And I can see that kind of being a dovetail into what Excite Credit Union does with the community. You started to talk about right at the end there, in the times that we are in right now, it'd be almost tone deaf for us to ignore that we're having this conversation, both of us and from the safety of our own homes, calling in and having this great conversation. But can you talk about how how COVID-19 and what Excite Credit Union's kind of answer is to that? Like what's going on with the credit union? How are you working with the community through these trying times?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, the credit union is unfortunately, no stranger to disaster, whether it's
Mm,
fires related or hurricanes that we've dealt with or flooding.
mm,
This is another opportunity for our credit union to really come through and shine on, what we can do to help them throughout this crisis. With Excite, credit unions in particular in our organization really have a solid focus on ensuring that we can help people transition through these difficult times. Before even some of the government regulation came out, Excite was prepared to offer up to a 6-month forbearance for all of our mortgage holders,
wow.
which is far above the 3 that was actually recommended, by our
Yeah,
governor.
that's
And
incredible.
for our consumer loans across the board as well, we're offering relief on, monthly payments, waiving our overdraft fees, and so forth. Doing what we can to truly give back in a time of
Hmm.
need. And again, that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, that is so cool. I always get this feeling with the credit union that it just feels more personable, right? And it's almost more local to the point where you can deal with problems that are specific to Santa Clara County, uh, with Site Credit Union being right there. Is that something you feel like you can almost make it more malleable to where people are banking with you?
Yeah, absolutely. We, again, going back to the whole promise to our community, our commitment is to our community and those nonprofits
Hmm.
and those organizations that are designed to really help build a stronger community. And, that starts with financial products and services. That's something that's a passion of ours. We as an
That's
organization as
great.
well also have, policies in place to allow individuals to take time away from work, paid time, to even just go volunteer in the community to make an impact with organizations wherever they see fit. And it's so humbling to work with an organization that has such a similar purpose, similar groups that we're supporting, and it's been a great partnership for us.
That's great. I love it. So we've talked about some of the things you do all the time in the community. Talked about some of the things you've done specifically around COVID-19 and some of the trying times we're in now. We'll take our foot off the gas here and talk about some of the more fun stuff, which is we're going to have our third annual Silicon Valley Half Marathon presented by a site credit union. And I'm saying we're going to have it because Richard, we're gonna have it.
We're
We're
going to
gonna
have
do it. We're gonna have
it.
it. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna will it into happening. We don't have a specific date for it yet. We're working really closely with the city of San Jose because they need to move all their different things around and events are moving, and we want to set it up for this fall, 2020. So we have the third annual in 2020. Not to mention really celebrate, the presenting sponsorship of Excite Credit Union, but also for the cause that we have, which is the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. So that's going to be our celebration. I feel like at the end of all of this, and we really want to get our community kind of, running, staying fit, keeping moving, using their token to get out once a day, looking towards something, and still give some people kind of a carrot at the end of this thing. That yes, we had to postpone it here April 5th, which would be happening this weekend. Like it's almost surreal that we should be preparing for a big race this weekend. But how are you guys taking it from a sponsor point of view of an event getting postponed like this? I think a lot of our listeners are other race directors, and they like to kind of hear the sponsor side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, the safety of the public is something that is truly
Hmm.
important. And I know it's a difficult decision to make to postpone this type of event. And, we applaud the efforts made to postpone even before some of the mandates were put into place to actually
Yep.
postpone this. So, I feel like from a sponsorship perspective, I think it was commendable for that decision to come to light. And the pure fact of how you're handling this, it's not just simply canceling the race outright, which has occurred to races here in the Bay Area. I know that
Right.
I was actually supposed to run another race and they just flat out canceled it altogether. But
Right.
really moving forward past just the race itself, but the purpose behind the race. That is something
Hmm.
that is so near and dear to my heart for my own runs that, I
Yep.
find that it is truly, truly um, something that everyone should do is run with purpose.
Yep. And that's great. Yep. And I love the word of purpose or intention. I think is really important of why do you do this? Because there's going to be so many hard times, and you kind of have to lean back on that intention or with that purpose, and that does come back to some of our organizational kind of pillars, which is our mission is to inspire people to move and change communities and improve communities, and to do it through that. So for us, by taking people's health in consideration and putting that at risk is completely against our mission. So we are just living kind of within it and being like, you know what, this is not the time to have a half marathon. This is the time to kind of buckle down, um, stay inside, stay safe. And I think that's why we were able to make such a definitive statement to be like, we can't have this now. Um, and it felt like it would just be against everything we're for. If we're trying to help our communities and keep everyone safe and healthy, it's the exact opposite. It's throwing people into a 5,000 person half marathon and having them all could cajole and be near each other. So
Yeah.
for us, we had to keep it safe. Uh, we love the idea of pushing it to the fall because maybe that gives us some more opportunity to open up this event to more people, and do it right when we can. So we're excited for that. So you mentioned running. We are so lucky to have a sponsor that actually runs. And I would love to hear your history. This is the Run Local podcast. We got to know when did Richard Walter find running? Why do you love it? Give us some insight into that.
Yeah, I fell into running, gosh, probably 7, maybe 8 years ago, where I had one of those, step on the scale moments, and I was a little alarmed to see the number that
Yeah.
popped up, and I had a hard conversation to have with myself. I was like,
Yeah.
there's probably some changes that I need to make in life, and so, from the research I did, I'm like, I've got to buckle down, and I've really got to get a good cardio situation, and I've got to get my nutrition under control. So. Setting individual goals is so important. And so when I embarked on that journey to shed a few pounds and tone up a little bit, I had a goal of actually just running a mile in under 8 minutes. That seems like an impossible feat to me at that time.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, it was at the time, and it seemed like a huge challenge to tackle. I remember, even just trying to even run 1 mile without stopping was something that was a huge challenge for me. I was able to accomplish that my first year, and
wow,
I was able to maintain that 8-minute mile pace, which I was very impressed by, and I do realize that is a pretty decent pace. From there, I said, I'm going to run a half marathon. It's probably the craziest idea I ever thought of.
That's a big leap from going, I want to run a sub 8-minute mile to now I'm going to run 13 of them.
Yeah. And gosh, I think back in 2013, I said, I'm going to run the San Francisco half marathon, which I did. And my goal was 1, to finish, and preferably 2, to do it without stopping. So I was so pleased. I finished that race and kind of caught the bug from there, and it's been addicting ever since.
Oh my gosh, that is great. And so that's 8 years ago. What was the most recent run that you did?
I ran 2 halves last year. So I ran the Livermore half. I think it was this time last year, and then I ran the Oaktown half as well.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So pretty good races in the East Bay. One thing I love about running is you do get to see different parts of the Bay Area or even the country if you're running in other places. Just for comparison, I think my first half marathon I finished at a pace. My total time was like 1 hour 49 minutes, which I was delighted with.
That's rolling.
The Livermore pace, I actually finished in 1 hour 32 minutes, and for the Silicon Valley half, I will finish in under 1 hour 30 minutes.
I love it. And you know what? There's no better course to have that goal for. We've designed it, Justin Coburn, our course management. I think it's one of the fastest courses in California. It's real flat, real fast, and hopefully we can start a nice early fall morning to get you that goal. And that would be amazing. That's under 7 minutes a mile. It
is. That's the goal.
Oh, Richard, you're throwing down the gauntlet right now, and I love it. And you know what? Maybe we have I don't know if you've heard of Meb Keflezighi, the silver medalist, but he is a investor in our event, and he usually goes out and paces one of the groups, and I think he typically likes to pace that 7-minute 1:30 group. So you may be alongside Meb, our race ambassador, going for that big goal, which you couldn't have a more qualified pacer. That'd be pretty sweet.
I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. So we've talked a little bit about Excite Credit Union, you're running, what we're all about. I'd love to know if you have any bucket lists coming up in the future. Like, what are you looking forward to? And it just doesn't even have to be running. Like, I'd love to know, like, you've got this VP job. Is there anything professionally, everything that you're looking forward to, even in these wild times?
I do. I do have, bucket list things, and certainly there's
Yep.
things that I'm interested in. But before we get on to that, I would be
Sure.
remiss if I didn't, kind of go back and just talk about a little bit about like having a purpose while running, and just
Yeah.
elaborating
I
on
love it.
that just a little bit further.
Perfect.
One of the huge challenges for me, or surprising consequences that came as a result of running, is that it really forced a change in my own personal mindset. When I very
Mm.
first started running, it truly was about me. Me being
Yeah.
better about today, me losing a few pounds, me shedding some time off my races. But the more and more that I ran, I started to see this change in my mindset around, you know, well, how can I compare this to other people in the community? And so many races, like the Silicon Valley Half, do have beneficiaries that assist those in need, such as
Hmm.
the Silicon Valley Educators Foundation.
Hmm.
And what is truly, truly amazing to me is that what your mind and body are capable of when you're actually serving others.
That is
Negative
cool.
thinking that you have is gone. The pain that your body
Hmm.
feels, it's completely squashed, and purpose
Yeah.
is truly achieved. Fighting to finish at my personal best really pales in comparison to the fight for upward mobility that kids in the foster system endure each day.
Mm.
Suddenly, my own personal problems, and if I don't have the best race time, those problems seem so minuscule, and it really
Yeah.
propels my own personal purpose in running.
That's really cool. And I'm curious if you have any specific tools. I don't know if it's in your mind or, ways that you bring that purpose back to your like back to your training and back to your competing, like to remind yourself of that real purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a race that I've done for a number of years in Sacramento each year. It's the Sacktown 10,
Hmm.
where their beneficiary of the race is the Children's Miracle Network. And
Yeah.
I was really touched one year because the whole entire race, I think my body was sore from training, and, had fatigue and that sort of thing. And I had the realization that said, gosh, what those kids are going through in the hospital as I'm running by is nothing compared to what I'm going for. And so
Mm.
each time, each time I'm out running, each time I have a step that I'm trying to take forward, you compare yourself to those that are less
Right.
fortunate than you, and it's like, I can run this race. I can participate. I can give money to these types of charities, because that truly, truly, truly will help giving
Yep.
to give back to the community.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm so glad you brought up this topic. It starts to bring kind of a flood of reminders to me of, I was kind of thinking back into my own running. I used to do it pretty seriously. I do it a lot less serious now. But I remember my mom is a two-time cancer survivor. And I would always, when I would get in a deep, deep, dark spot in a marathon or something where I didn't think I could keep that pace going or something like that, I would just think about like all the treatments she had and the way that she would still keep a smile on her face or something like that. And I'd just be like, oh, if she can do that, I can do this. I'm just out running.
Yeah,
Like I'm
yeah,
just I'm
yeah.
just putting one foot in front of the other. Like stop taking yourself so seriously. People have 10 times harder problems than this. So if they could be tough then you can be tough now. Ah, it's so
Yeah.
cool.
And I
I'm
even
so
think
glad you
with
brought that up.
and I even think too with this whole, COVID-19 that's going on, as a runner, I don't know about you, but I set sometimes unrealistically high expectations for myself. And so
Constantly.
I feel like to a certain degree, I'm like, gosh, I can't get out for a run. And, Richard, you're being so lazy. You need to get out and go
Right.
for a run. And you forget that there is actually sick people out there that are dealing with this illness that can't breathe
Hmm.
at all. And, we are fortunate enough to be healthy, and, have gotten the protocol to,
Yep.
shelter in place, and, work at least, 6 feet apart from each other, and some of those sort of things. And
Right.
it helps with, some of the empathy for, the whole
That's
problem that
cool.
we're all
Yeah.
dealing with right now.
Absolutely. I think that's great perspective because otherwise you're hearing a lot of people complain about this and this, or I can't go to this, or I can't eat that, or this event's canceled. And you put it all in perspective and we're going to get out of this.
Yeah.
And maybe even stronger. So we're seeing, and I don't know if you're reading some of this, but there's now, because gyms are closed, because people, maybe can't go to a pool where they normally would go swim. We're getting a whole new generation of runners because of
Yeah.
COVID-19, and people that are just like, I guess this is all I can do. Have you seen some of that? And what do you think about it?
Absolutely, and I am so thrilled to see additional
Yeah.
people pick up running. I think back even training for the Silicon Valley half, I would go out and do my long runs on the weekend, and I may see a handful of people while I would be out. Some of them walking, some
Hmm.
of them riding bikes, and I was the lone soul on there, putting in
Right.
mile after mile, just trying to get my pace down.
Yeah.
But these last few weeks, you see people running and it's crowded. It's almost like crowded where they're trying to stay away the 6 feet, and it's
I
such
know.
a breath
It's
of
like they're
fresh
going
air.
around each other.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air to see people pick up this new hobby, and it's an awesome time to be a runner.
I think it is too. And I think again, it goes back to kind of like the simplicity of running, that you don't need much, right? You need some shoes, you need some legs, and you can get out in a little bit of time. And I'm so excited for it. I'm curious, and maybe this would be good for maybe other new runners listening to this. Were there any resources that you recall kind of referring to when you were just starting out that were really helpful? Um, and I know
You
not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah,
what you
no,
think.
I think one thing about me is I love to just research stuff online. So I literally would go to
Hmm.
Google and be like, what are some of the best practices for running?
Right.
And I think I remember coming across something about couch to 5K. I don't know if you're
Oh yeah,
familiar with
I
that,
do.
but
I know the program.
I
It's very popular.
so I was like, I'm going to try to do this couch to 5K, and
Yeah.
I really wasn't very strict with my training with that. I
Hmm.
kind of just did it the Richard way, if you will, where I wasn't
Yes.
always as consistent, and a lot of it was trial and error. I would
Hmm.
just go out, and I think tracking for me was something that was important to see. Okay, I ran this distance this fast. What was my pace? And
Right.
just certainly just tracking some of my movements. It's kind of interesting, with the advances that we've seen over the past 5 to 10 years. I never was a watch wearer before, and
Hmm.
now I wear like an Apple Watch, and
Hmm.
you tracking every single calorie I burn, every single run that I do. I
Right.
have a lot of data to help make sure that I'm on track with my running. Um,
That's cool.
I don't know about you. Do you use any running apps where you actually track your apps on?
Yep.
Yes.
I think I pop around. I think the fun one for community wise is Strava, like that people are can kind of see each other's runs. I really like utilizing a Map My Run. That is kind of a fun one, not only because it tracks it, but there's some training plans on that one as
Yeah.
well. So some that are a little more in depth. There's so many great ones now.
Yeah.
Nike Run Club has them, so it's kind of like what's your preference and which one do you kind of get one and you stick to it to
Yep.
an extent. Um,
Yeah. I've
but
kind of bounced around them too, just trying to figure out
Mhm.
which one the right one was for me. I've tried all of those, including Runkeeper as well. That's what
Oh
I was
yeah,
using when I was training for Silicon Valley Half, and that
yep,
training plan was pretty rigorous and was definitely helping me get towards my
I
goal
love it.
pace. So,
Yeah. And I think that's cool. I think it's tracking is, and you're talking about almost just looking at metrics, but it gives people like encouragement, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm going a little bit faster. I wasn't able to do this 2 weeks ago. Burning more calories, losing weight, and you're seeing these different numbers, and it can be directly attributed to the work you're putting in. Um,
yeah. And I would
I
say
do
to
have,
like
yeah.
the new runners out there too, it's not always just about the numbers that you put up. I think that's something else that was really tough for me in the beginning was, gosh,
Hmm.
I was really trying to get to that 8 minute mile. Not everyone is going to be at that 8 minute mile,
No.
and running is such an individual thing. And I think the natural tendency is to kind of compare yourself to others, whereas
Yep.
you should only be comparing yourself to yourself.
Totally.
Are you better today than you were yesterday?
Yep, and that's great. We had our last podcast guest, Martinez Evans, uh, big 300-pound guy, and he is running marathons like 5 a year. He is out there, and you know what? It takes him what it takes him, but he gets it done, and he inspires people like all over the world that running's not just for like these cookie cutter people that look like string beans or something like that. That it's for like every body type and every, race, sex, everything. that the running's for everyone, and we had such a good conversation about how to open that up and try to make it more, I don't know, just make it feel more like welcome to everyone. And I think you're really just echoing that sentiment, that it's not about being fast. It's about being out there and improving. So cool. Man, Richard, I feel really positive about this conversation. I'm so glad you brought it to purpose. I think that's going to be kind of the theme of this one, because I think there's a lot of purpose from what we do as event producers, what Excite Credit Union is doing in terms of your relationships and your partnerships, not only with events such as ours, but also with the community during COVID-19 advanced, but also all the time with foster children, and improving education opportunities throughout San Jose and Santa Clara County. I think purpose is really kind of our theme today. I thought it was so cool that you brought that up. That was great. Is there anything else you wanna put out there for the people? Where can people find out more about how to become Excite Credit Union members now that they've heard the amazing company that you guys are?
Yeah, I would encourage those interested to join the credit union to go to excitecu.org. Again, just encouraging people to use remote channels as much as possible, just for their own safety. When it is safe to come out, we do have branches that are accessible, but we do encourage you to go online to find out more information. We do have a whole host of information on our website as well as it relates to COVID-19. So anything from scams to be aware of, as well as additional resources that individuals that are impacted could actually tap into. We're really doing our best to make sure that we're helping spread some of the good information out there in the world as well.
That's so cool. Yeah, from the first day I met Brian Dorsey and John and the whole team over there, and now great to talk to you. I always feel better and better about our partnership. It feels like the real deal, rowing the boat in the same direction. And I cannot wait to see you run 1 hour, 29 minutes this October at the Silicon Valley Half Marathon presented by Excite Credit Union. It is going to be a treat for me to see that. So you better keep training.
Yes, maybe an hour, 28 minutes. Who knows?
Oh, that's perfect. I love it. I love that you're continuing to push it. You're not even going to let yourself off the hook. But we all got to keep training during COVID-19 and some of our shelter in place. So everyone keep chopping wood out there. On behalf of Run Local Events and Richard Walter, our guest today from Excite Credit Union, I want to thank everyone for tuning into the podcast, and we will talk to you next week. Have a great day.